Hello, this is a demo of a mobile app I developed using Flutter. The app is called MyRecipes, and it's where you keep all your time-proven recipes so that you can find them easily by using the app's search capabilities and by giving you the option to group the recipes into categories. The app also lets you back up the recipes into the cloud and then restore it whenever you want, whether back to the same device or to another device that has the app installed. In this way, you are able to keep your recipes in a safe place even if something happens to your device. So let's start. Let's launch the app. Note that the app is currently empty. There are no recipes in the All Recipes screen, nor are there any categories in the Categories screen. And because there are no recipes, you also have no favorite recipes listed in the favorite screen. It would be a better demo if it had recipes and categories defined. The quickest way to do that is to restore one of the backups I already have on the cloud. So let's do that. To restore a backup already in the cloud, you tap on the hamburger icon from any of the main screens. This would invoke the main drawer menu. Main drawer menu, you would tap on the Restore Backup. Before we do that, I just want to say something about how the app presents its interaction with the cloud. Now, anyone who deals regularly with the cloud knows that it's a multi-step process. Typically, you have to log on, find the remote folder that you want to store a file in or download a file from, select the file from that folder, and then download it. In addition to that, since the backup is a zip file, that app has to uncompress it and store the resulting files in the proper folders in the device. The app automates this for you, but it does indicate what step it is currently in, so that if that step fails, which it sometimes does, you'll have some idea why. This is why a whole bunch of status messages will appear when restoring a backup. So let's see that. Let's start the restore by tapping on Restore Backup. You'll be asked whether to proceed with the restore. Tap on OK. Here's the beginning of those status messages. When the Select Backup to Restore dialog box comes up, check on the one you want to restore and tap on OK. In this case, I want to restore the backup I made on the 12th of December at 8 a.m. This one. To find out how big this backup is, scroll left. Note that it's approximately 2.5 megabytes large. So let's start the restore. It will now download the backup from the cloud, which in this case is Google Drive, after which it will uncompress the backup. This may take a while, depending on how fast your internet is, how fast your device is, and how big your backup is. Now, the size of the backup is largely dependent on how many images you used when defining the recipes contained inside of it. This backup is approximately 2 megabytes large. So let's wait. When we get to the Restore Backup OK message box, we're done. Tap on OK. It's now processing the backup. We're now seeing 13 recipe tiles. To see the categories, if any, tap on the categories icon in the bottom bar. We're seeing 9 categories. To see the recipes that have been tagged as a favorite, tap on the favorites icon. And we're seeing 1 favorite recipe thus far. So now we've got data in the app. Next, we're going to talk about how to search for a particular recipe. So how do we search for a particular recipe? There are a few ways to do that. If there are relatively few recipes, the quickest way is to go to the All Recipes screen and look for it in the alphabetized list of recipes. Let's do that. Let's look for the recipe Basic Mayonnaise, and here it is. To view the recipe, tap on the tile. So we're now in the recipe view screen, and we're seeing the recipe whose title is Basic Mayonnaise. I'll talk about how to enter and edit a recipe later, but I just want to bring up the following things about this recipe. First, it has a hero image associated with it. This image was selected from the device's photo gallery. Alternatively, I could have generated an image using the phone's camera. But the thing I want to stress is that this image is optional. When entering a recipe, you don't have to associate an image with it. And the advantage of not doing so is that the app will take up less space in your phone, and when backing up the app to the cloud, it will take less time to do so. Of course, having an image makes the recipe a lot more compelling, so the decision is up to you. The other thing I want to bring up about this recipe is that it is associated with a category #condiments. A category is intended to be a group of like recipes, and a recipe can belong to more than one category. The primary purpose of category is to facilitate the search for a particular recipe knowing one of the category it belongs to. For example, this recipe Basic Mayonnaise belongs to the #condiments category. So one way to search for this recipe is to go to the #condiments category and look for it there. Let's do that now. Let's go back to the All Recipes screen by hitting the back button. And then there, let's go to the category screen. Let's tap on the #condiments category tile. So we can now see the Basic Mayonnaise recipe tile there, along with another recipe called aquafaba butter that belongs to the same category. Let's tap on the Basic Mayonnaise tile to view the recipe again. Oh, sorry. Tap on the aquafaba butter recipe. So that's how we use the recipe categories to search for recipes quicker. By the way, while you're in the view screen, you can also tap on the category button to show all the recipes that currently belong to that category, like so. Categories are useful, but as the number of categories grows, it will be harder to do a search using just categories. For this reason, the app has the search criteria construct. Let's look into it. To search for recipes using the search criteria construct, go to any screen that has a magnifier icon on the title bar and tap on it. We're now in the Edit Search Criteria dialog box. The way the search criteria works is that you can specify a combination of 4 information types that you can search on. The idea is if you specify all 4, a recipe has to meet all conditions to be considered a hit. If you only specify 1, for example, then a recipe only has to meet that one condition. Let's try it. In the recipe title search pattern field, enter Angel Food Cake. By only specifying this one criteria, we'll be searching in the entire database for recipes having the name Angel Food Cake. Tap on the Start Search button. We're now in the search results screen, and it should have found our Angel Food Cake recipe. But let's say we forgot the exact title of the recipe, and all we can remember is that it's got the word cake on it. That's possible to search for. Let's tap on the magnifier glass icon again. We're back in the Edit Recipe Search Criteria dialog box. Replace the Angel Food Cake title with %, cake, %. The 2 percentage signs is a pattern delimiter that tells the app that you want to search for all recipes with the word cake in its title. Tap Start Search. In the search results screen, 2 recipes were found. Our Angel Food Cake recipe and another recipe whose name is Condensed Milk Cake Recipes. The second recipe was found because it also has the word cake in its title. So let's say you don't remember any part of the name, but you remember that the recipe you're searching for used all-purpose flour as one of its ingredients. You can use that as a search criteria. Let's go back to the search criteria dialog box. Remove the search pattern and in the Having Ingredients field, hit the plus icon. In the Select Ingredient dialog box, check on All-Purpose Flour and tap on OK. Tap on Search. In the search results screen, 4 recipes were found. Let's check one of them to see if it does indeed use all-purpose flour. And you can see that it does. As the number of recipes grow, this search criteria feature will be invaluable. And to those SQL database people watching this video, you'd be right in thinking that the best way for me to have implemented the search using ingredients feature is to have centralized all possible lists of ingredients in a separate table that all recipes would have to use. That's exactly what I did. The funny thing is that I didn't do so for this feature. That was just an unexpected bonus. The primary reason why I centralized the list of ingredients is for the app to be able to calculate the cost per serving, which I plan to implement in upcoming versions. Again, the easiest way to automate the calculation of cost per serving is if the list of ingredients is centralized. You see, as a former restaurateur, I found the process of manually calculating cost per serving to be very tedious, and the ability to be able for the app to automate this process is one of my motivations for creating this app to begin with. Let's now talk about how to tag a recipe as a favorite. The easiest way to tag a recipe as a favorite is to go to a screen that has a recipe tile associated with a wanted recipe. So let's do that. Let's say I wanted to tag the angel food cake recipe as a favorite. In the upper right-hand corner of the tile, you will see a faint outline of a hollow star, just this one. Tap on it. Tap on OK to mark this recipe as a favorite. You now have marked the recipe as being a favorite, as shown by the hollow star turning yellow. It should now be listed in the favorite screen. Let's verify this by going to the favorite screen. So now, the angel food cake recipe should now be listed in the favorite screen, as shown here. So that's one of the ways to mark a recipe as a favorite. Let's now talk about how to enter recipes. We've now seen how to search for and view an existing recipe. Let's now find out how to create a new recipe. But first, let's empty out the app so that it's easier to see our newly created recipe. To do that, click on any hamburger icon in any of the main screens, and from the main drawer menu, tap on Delete All Recipes. So let's look for a hamburger icon. So this is a hamburger icon. And from the main drawer menu, on Delete All Recipes. Tap on OK. The app is now empty and we're working from a clean slate. Let's create a recipe called Angel Food Cake in this empty app. From the All Recipes screen, we do this by tapping on this floating action button. We're now in the Recipes screen. Let's enter Angel Food Cake in the recipe title field and leave all the other fields as is for now. And we'll talk about these other fields later. Let's now save this recipe by tapping on the save icon. And we've now created our first recipe. We've now got a tile called Angel Food Cake in the All Recipes screen. Let's tap on the tile to view the recipe. Note that the recipe is empty. So let's start filling it in. To start editing a recipe, we go to the Recipes View screen and tap on the Edit icon. We're now in the Edit Recipes. The first thing we're going to do is assign a category to this recipe. So let's now create a category called Cakes and assign it to this recipe. One way to do that is to tap on the plus icon on the category field. We're now in the Assign Categories dialog box. Note that there are no categories defined. So let's define one by tapping on the plus icon. We're now in the Recipe Categories category dialog box. Let's enter Cakes in the category name field and tap on OK. So we're now showing hashtag cakes category in the dialog box. Let's tap on the checkbox to assign it to the recipe and tap on OK. So the hashtag cakes button should now be showing up in the recipe categories field. So we've created a new category called hashtag cakes and assigned our recipe to that category. Let's say we now want to create another category called desserts and assign this recipe there too. We can do that. Let's tap on the plus icon again. The Assign dialog box, let's create the new category by tapping on the plus icon. In the Create box, let's enter desserts and hit OK. At this point, the new category has been created, and let's assign it to the recipe by clicking on the checkbox and then tap OK. Voila! We've now categories defined, both containing our angel food cake recipe. Let's save these changes. Let's now add a hero image to the recipe. Let's first go to the edit screen by tapping on the edit icon. From there, you can now select the image you want, either from the device photo gallery or the device camera. Let's use the device camera. Since this is an emulator and not an actual cell phone, the act of taking a photo will be simulated by the emulator. So let's just pretend that the resulting picture is that of an angel food cake that we just baked using this recipe. So we tap on the camera icon. We accept the picture by tapping on the camera icon again. We accept the picture by tapping on the check icon. So we're back in the edit screen, and we should now be seeing a thumbnail of the picture we just took. Let's save these changes and see how the image looks on the saved recipe. Back in the view screen, and we should now be seeing the image we took, used as a hero image on top of the recipe. This image will also be used in the recipe tile. So let's see that by clicking on the back button. So note that the image is also used as a thumbnail in the recipe tile, making the tile more recognizable as a particular recipe. So that's how we associate a hero image to a recipe. As we discussed previously, you don't have to do this. It's really more for those foodies who like to take Instagram photos of food that they eat. So far, we've added the recipe name, recipe categories, and we assigned a hero image to the recipe. Let's now add the main information that every recipe contains, that being recipe ingredients and instructions. Let's start with the recipe ingredients. Let's go back to the edit screen. And one quick way of getting there from the recipe tile is by long pressing on the tile and selecting the edit menu item from the resulting context menu. So let's long press and then select edit recipe. Currently, the recipe has 0 recipe ingredients defined. Let's add 1/2 cup all-purpose flour recipe ingredient by tapping on the plus icon. We're now in the Add Recipe Ingredient dialog box. In the amount field, let's enter 1/2. The app will allow you to enter 1/2 either as a fraction or as the decimal number 0.5. It's up to you to decide how to enter it. Let's enter it as a fraction. Enter 1/2. Okay. In the unit field, let's search for the cup unit of measurement. In the ingredient field, let's search for the all-purpose flour ingredient by tapping on the down icon. All-purpose flour. Okay. So back in the Add Recipe Ingredient dialog box, all 3 fields should now be filled. Tap on the Add button. This. The recipe ingredient should now be added. To see it, tap on Exit. So this. Let's save this. Obviously, there will be more than one recipe ingredient in the recipe, but now you know how to enter them. If you recall from the list of available ingredients to select from, there were only 5 predefined ingredients, one of them being all-purpose flour. Obviously, we are going to need to add more as we enter more recipes, and this is how we do so. We need to go back to the recipe edit screen, and let's use the context menu approach. Long press, select edit recipe. Okay. From the edit screen, let's go back to the Add Recipe Ingredient dialog box by clicking on this plus icon. From there, let's go back to the Select Ingredient dialog box by clicking on this down button. From that dialog box, let's hit the plus icon, which will invoke the Add Ingredient dialog box. This is the dialog box that's used to enter new ingredients. So let's enter egg whites. So for example, let's enter egg whites as a new ingredient. Enter egg whites in the name field. And hit OK. The new ingredient should now appear in the Select Ingredient dialog box here, and is now available for all recipes to use if needed. And that's it. The last information we need to add to the new recipe is an instruction. And the process is very similar to adding a recipe ingredient. Let's go back to the edit screen using the context menu approach. So long press, hit edit screen. Edit screen, we're going to add the instruction sift flour into a medium-sized bowl. To do that, we tap on the plus icon on the instructions field. We're now on the Add Recipe Instruction dialog box. In the instruction field, enter sift flour into medium-sized bowl. So we hit X. So back in the food cake recipe screen, we should now see the newly created instruction. Here it is. Let's save the recipe. So we filled in the fields in the recipe screen, and that's the way to create a recipe. Obviously, there are more recipe ingredients and instructions to be entered, but the process is the same for each one. The last use case I will talk about is how to back up the recipes to the cloud, which in this case is Google Drive. Recall that we already restored a backup from the cloud early in this video. This is a side note, but it's an important one. Before you can back up to the cloud, or for that matter, restore from the cloud, you have to obtain what's called an OAuth credentials from the Google Drive console. When you obtain these credentials, you have basically registered the app to be able to use the Google Drive API. I've already done this, and the OAuth credentials is basically a string like so. That one. Now the process of getting this string a bit involved, so I'll talk about it and how to obtain it in another video. I'm mentioning it now so that you know about it. So let's proceed with the backup. Make sure that device has internet connectivity, which mine does. From any of the main screens, hit the hamburger icon, and from the main drawer menu, hit Google Drive. Tap on OK. Now a whole bunch of messages will come up just like store. And because we only got one recipe with one image, it's going to be pretty fast. And when you get the backup Google Drive OK message, you've successfully backed up to Google Drive. So hit OK. Let's test this. And to test it, empty it out. And then do a restore. So now it's empty, right? And if the restore will bring back our recipe with the image, we know that our backup worked. Okay, so let's do that now. Let's hit restore. So we just backed up. Our backup will be on the top because we just backed it up. So let's select the topmost one. The restore went OK. And we've got our file, angel food cake, our recipe, which is angel food cake. So we know that it worked. So that's the end of the demo. One thing before I go though, in this version of the app, I concentrated more on getting a streamlined and logical workflow than on the way the app looks. I know the app could look better, but I hope to do that in the upcoming versions. So thanks for watching. Bye now.